Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, the animal podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. In today's episode, we're going to be celebrating Valentine's Day, another holiday special that I'm kind of really digging these ideas. So I don't really think I could do an Easter one because I haven't come up with anything Easter related in Assassin's Creed yet. Maybe Easter eggs. Anyways, that's a different topic. So to celebrate Valentine's Day and all things Valentines and love, we're going to take a look at 3 couples in Assassin's Creed and talk about how they changed the main characters' lives and how they actually influenced the story of Assassin's Creed and the lore. Now, I want to give a massive shout out to the Nerdy Archer and Kilmy27 from the Mentors Guild for helping me come up with the idea for the show. For this week, I did have a bit of a writer's block on what direction I should do for you all, a Valhalla one or an Assassin's Creed one, and the Nerdy Archer did point out it's Valentine's Day and well, this show was born. So the first couple we're going to look at is Ezio Auditore and Sofia Sartor. Now, I originally did want to pick Cristina Vallecce from Brotherhood because her story was really interesting, especially in the novel where he really did everything he could to try and save her, especially when she was held captive by Lucrezia Borgia. Sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. And how he broke in and manipulated her to try and get her free. But then she ended up breaking his heart by saying that it was more business than actual love. So I didn't really want to go down that route because I didn't think that was a good Valentine's Day story. So I did choose Sofia Sartora because I really love their story. And one of the reasons why I love the story is during his time in Constantinople, while Ezio was searching for the Messiah keys to try and find access to Altea's library, he used some of his knowledge and he suspected the old trading post where Sophia was working, using it as a bookshop and working there. And he started to see if the store would contain information. And as he was looking, he did find a secret hidden passage that led to the Yerbatan cistern. And when he investigated the tunnel, he did find maps and one key. The maps themselves were very interesting for Sophia because they included locations for her books, which I believe she would have really had a keen interest in. And then during the course of the game, Ezio did grow very close to Sophia. There was an instance where she was waiting for the docs to get her package, but it wasn't possible because the papers weren't in order. Ezio then got involved and helped get the package. When they returned back to the bookstore, he saw it was ransacked by a thief and stolen a painting. So Ezio again kind of put his business in Constantinople aside for her and actually raced off to get this priceless piece of artwork and bring it back. He even risked everything to save her when she was captured by the Templars. So it shows that Ezio did have a deep connection for her. And the reason one point in the game where it actually stops and they talk about the Dante's poem, and they have picked flowers, and they get real close. And you can see during the game that Ezio has finally found someone that he's already having the doubts. You know, he's spent a long time in the Brotherhood. He wants to settle down, have a life. It's a lot of pressure being a mentor, and I think he found that confiding in Sophia that this was somebody he could spend the end of days with. Maybe he could hang up his hood and be with her. When they finally made it to Messiah for the 5 keys, he did actually open up to her about the Brotherhood and his thoughts about leaving. And when he discovered Altea's library, she told him to come back alive. And he did. And when he returned, they, stayed together for a few weeks, months, and they eventually married and settled down in Florence. They did have 2 kids, and the the old Polo trading post was eventually renovated into a bookstore, but also a place to keep the assassins secret. So it's a good way of giving his legacy one last place to rest. Now this affected the story in a good way because it showed Ezio's final moments. He grew old, he'd done a lot. I think Brotherhood, he was about 44, 46, so judging by Revelations, he must have been in his 50s. And the reason why this is why this relationship changed the game and eventually changed the characters, because Ezio had done a lot for the Brotherhood. After his death of his brother and his father, and he lost nearly everything, and his mum died, he had really nothing left. It was just him and the Brotherhood, and he carried that on his shoulders. And meeting Sophia, he found someone he could love, someone he could settle down with, and someone he can really say, well, you know what, I've had enough of the Brotherhood. I want to retire. I want to be free of the burden of the rules and the tenets of the creed. I just want a happy life. And he eventually got that, but the other way it affects the story is, while he was in retirement, he did meet and actually retrain fellow assassin Xiao Jun from the Assassin's Creed Chronicles China series. And you see through the film Embers how he lives his final moments in the Florence market. And this is all because of his relationship with Sophia. If he never met Sophia, he probably never would have settled down and lived a quiet life. And maybe never would have trained Xiao Jun to go back and take on the Tigers in Assassin's Creed Chronicles. So it's kind of interesting to see how this one person helped change Ezio's life and give him that final hope that he doesn't have to carry on the Brotherhood. He could just rest and live his life. The second character I want to look at is a character that I really enjoyed, especially since I've read Forsaken and the Black Flag novel. I really enjoyed this character a lot more, and that's Edward Kenway. Edward Kenway is a pirate at heart and a privateer, but looking at his past and his life, he wasn't always like that. He grew up a simple farmer, didn't really do much, he wasn't really handy on the farm, and he spent more of his time in the taverns. And when he was in the taverns, he eventually met Carolina Scott after he rescued her maid from being attacked. Now, he really wanted to meet Carolina and get to know her, but she refused due to the social conformities of the day. She realised her father wouldn't agree with the union, and probably not like Edward that much. He was a bit of a drunkard, a bit of an aggressive type of personality. In the books, he does come off as a hothead, but... And one... sorry for that delay, my computer just froze while I was trying to read my notes. Sorry about that. One midnight stroll, Carolina did confide to Edward about her arranged marriage, and how she wasn't very comfortable with the idea of settling down for a man that she didn't like. And she wanted to keep Edward close to her, but she was also worried about her father's reaction. Now, she did spend quite some time having a secret affair with Edward, but they did finally get married to the dismay of her father. Her father was so hurt by this transaction, this society union that he wasn't comfortable with. He wanted her to be married into a posh life, not the life of a pauper and a farmer. That he disowned her, and she eventually moved to Edward's farm. Now, in the book, in the Black Flag novel, when he looks back at Edward's life, he realised that she'd given up so much for him that he didn't feel he was giving her enough. He didn't feel that he could be the man that she wanted him to be. Now, her father really tried to play on this, and he did so much to drive a wedge between the two. And he did try and buy out Edward, who got drunk and passed out and then publicly shamed to his wife, hey, look, he's a drunkard, by her dad. But she stuck by him. And the reason why I'm going into all this detail is because it shows that they had a strong connection. They were meant to be together. And it got to the point where Edward didn't want to see her upset and living a life that she didn't deserve. He wanted her to deserve a life full of riches, something he wished he could provide. So he did go back to Caroline's father and come up with a proposal that, hey, I'm going to be a privateer. I'm going to bring back the riches. You're going to see that I can be the man for her. And this is a lot of detail that Edward did a lot for her, and he eventually did become a privateer, and her father got her way, he got her daughter back and could manipulate her against him. But when he became this privateer, he kept it in his heart that this is what I'm doing it for Caroline. I'm going to make my riches, I'm going to make my fortune, I'm going to send it home to Caroline. He never did this for selfishness, for greed, for money or fame. He did it for Caroline. And now when the Spanish War eventually stopped, there was no need for privateers anymore. The king didn't need them. So he turned to a life of pirating, which is another topic of why he became a pirate. But when you play the game, you always see the flashbacks of Caroline. You never hear him use phrases that make it seem like he's doing this for his own greed. When he talks to Blackbeard or Edward, when he has just talking, he doesn't seem to be the kind of guy like, I'm going to raid this plantation for cash because, hey, I'm bored or I wanted money. He had dreams of making all these riches from the observatory and taking them home. He wanted to be that husband to Caroline that he thought that she deserved, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And the reason why I think this changed the game a little and changed Edward himself is, in the books, it's mainly that Edward was carefree. Didn't really bother, wasn't really interested much. He drank, he bawled, he got around. It was a simple life for Edward, but he sacrificed everything for Caroline, his love, and he sailed off to be a privateer. And it was this love that made him do these sort of things that actually helped him fall into the hidden conflict of Assassins of the Templars. If he never fell for Caroline and just lived his carefree life, I don't believe he would have ever got up one day and thought, I'll join the privateers. So essentially, it's through Caroline and his love for Caroline that he stayed humble, stayed honoured to bring riches home to, that he fell into the hidden conflict of Assassins vs Templars, which he eventually aligned with the Assassins, and he came home. And eventually he did lose Caroline after they had a daughter, which there's a lot more lore to it, but I didn't want to, put too much into this episode. But I will happily go into more in the future. And he went back to England and did become a master assassin. So essentially, through this love and union, he did do everything he could for her and stayed honourable and true. And he did eventually find himself trapped in the war between Assassins and Templars in hopes of just bringing more riches. So the final couple that I want to discuss is another couple that I didn't really understand. So by that I mean is playing Assassin's Creed 3 and playing through Haytham's life, it's kind of, you don't really get much because of the way the game pace works, but when you read Forsaken and you read about his love for Connor's mum, I will try and pronounce the name, but I don't want to cause any offence if I get it wrong. So I may just call it Connor's mum so I don't cause any offence if I get the name wrong. That he kind of sacrificed a lot for her. So during Haytham's time in America searching for the storehouse, he did come across Connor's mum and he freed her from Stylus's men, and he eventually killed Stylus. Now, after a while, he did send his own people to go and find her because he wanted to get to know her. I think he must have found an interesting person that he wanted to know. And they caused a temporary alliance to try and kill the Bulldog's men. Braddock. I use his nickname Bulldog because I don't know why I put that in my notes. Ignore me. And using their alliance, they were able to set up an ambush to kill Braddock. And once he got Braddock on alone, he did kill Braddock. But Braddock may have lived and then eventually died of his wounds. Now, Haytham went back to Connor's mum and told her the news that Braddock was dead, and she was happy that her people could now be free. And after he killed Braddock, he went to search for the doorway with the key. She led him to it, and it didn't actually work because it was an incorrect piece of Eden. And there was a romantic moment, and they both kissed in the storehouse cabin. And this is where Haytham decided that he would stay with her. he would neglect his duties as a Grand Master of the colonial rite, and he would just stay with her. And he did for quite a few weeks. They camped together, they grew close, but it all came to head when Charles Lee came delivering a letter from Holden, who actually informed that Braddock had died of his wounds, which was kind of a dampener because for her, she fell in love with him and they grew close because she believed that he helped kill Braddock. He didn't kill Braddock, he just wounded him and then he died of his actions. She eventually ordered him to leave, and out of respect, he did. And then, well, the rest is known in the story. She had his child, who became Connor, and he never knew about this. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this part of the Valentine's Day special is because Haytham followed the Templar Order. After being abducted by the Templars, he followed the Templars very well and closely, and he did have a few moments where he disagreed with their terms and their tenets and how they operated, but he stuck at it as a loyal Templar agent. Sorry about that. But it's through Connor's mum that he actually gave it all up. He actually took a backseat from his duties to be just Haytham. He'd fallen in love with somebody and he wanted to celebrate that. He wanted to be alone, and I think it really hurt him that he didn't kill Braddock. If he killed Braddock, he would have stayed with her. And this is where I think this Assassin's Creed story would have taken a huge turn. Because of his views and his order, Connor may never have become an assassin. If he did kill Braddock and they stayed together and he still did his Templar duties, Connor could have been raised as the next Templar agent, which would have made the games a bit different, but I wouldn't mind to see how that played out, I will admit. But yeah, it just shows that in this episode, these people helped change the assassins' lives. If it wasn't for these people, the stories and the law would not have been the same. If Ezio did not meet Sophia, he may have just given up and retired alone. Xiao Jun may never have the confidence to revisit China. If Edward never met Caroline, he may never have decided to sail the seas and bring riches for her. He may have just stayed at home, drinking, having a bit of bar fights, and just living a carefree life. And Haytham, if he never betrayed Connor's mum by not killing Braddock, he may have raised Connor to be a Templar, which would have changed the law drastically, because it's with Connor that the colonial assassins was able to rise again with Achilles Davenport. So thank you all for stopping by and enjoying this episode. If you all would like to take part in the next episode or have any more ideas, please shoot them my way through Twitter and email assassinscreedletstalk@gmail.com. Wishes all a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow, and I will see you all next week. Thank you all for listening.